potatoes, spiced apples, and some asparagus. And then we're going to bake up a cinnamon swirl loaf per the cameraman's request. Which is probably his favorite. And I have to say, it's a very simple loaf to make, but it is very, very delicious. So we're going to flip this guy out onto our parchment paper here. Peel him back. We'll give him a nice score. We'll do our classic kind of crisscross here. And you can see right there, you see that cinnamon swirl base in the middle? That's that sugar and the cinnamon. When I do during the lamination process, so I start with my basic, traditional loaf, and then I add a little bit of cinnamon sugar and a little bit of extra cinnamon on top of the cinnamon sugar, because I always have cinnamon sugar mixed up. And then I sprinkle that throughout the lamination process and then shape it up. Get that in our Dutch oven that's been nice and hot and heated, which is with my chickens in the oven as well. Slide these guys in here. Snug as a bug in a rug. Slide it up. And then we'll put our lid on, and we're going to bake this for 20 minutes at 500. Then we'll take the lid off and bake for 20 minutes at 450. And I have 2 whole chickens right now in my big chili pot Dutch oven, roasting up in there. With the lid on at 500, they're protected, and it kind of keeps them nice and safe, but it'll cook them up for us. So we don't have to kind of worry about that. Let's get our potatoes frying up here, and then we'll work on our spiced apples to get those nice and tender, because Evie came down and she was like, we're having potatoes for dinner, because, she does not like potatoes. And I said, well, that's not the main thing. And she was like, oh, good. And I was like, I'll have chicken. And she's like, can you make spiced apples? And I was like, sure, I'll make some spiced apples for you because you love them. I am going to give these potatoes, let's see, we'll just do a quick peel on them. Just get a little bit off there for them. I scrubbed them clean, but they are a very, very dark skin potato. So we're just going to peel a little bit off of it. It's okay if there's a little bit on there, but then we'll cube them up. You can keep the skin on if you want, but since they are russet, that skin isn't quite as tender and as nice. So, get these guys prepped down. Now it's funny, when I first grabbed these potatoes, I was like, oh, were they not pre-washed at all? Because most of the time you get your potatoes from the store, they're, somewhat clean. These I washed them. They weren't exceptionally dirty. They just are very dark skinned potatoes. I was like, they must have been grown in some like volcanic dirt, I swear. They're very dark. And then we'll cube these guys. And we'll get our onions up and sauteing as well for our potatoes. And we're going to kind of do like a potato O'Brien. So I have potatoes, onions, garlic, and some sweet peppers. And then we'll season them up towards the end. So just a yummy fried potato, which is always a classic. Note these last ones down. And then I've got our little asparagus, which I always call broccoli spears. That's how I got my kids to eat asparagus when they're little, because they love broccoli. And then it was kind of branching out from broccoli. Cauliflower was always called snowy broccoli. And at the time, frozen was really, really big. So I was like, Elsa froze our broccoli. And that's when they would eat their cauliflower. They're always fine. When they're little, just give things alternate names and kids will eat them happy. Like shrimp and scallops were all salmon in variations. Salmon bites, salmon swirls. They were all one form of salmon. Just, kids would eat it. Yeah, let's get these last ones down. Okay. So we've got our potatoes peeled, somewhat, just a rough peel on it. But let me get my onion sauteing up first. So I turn my skillet on. We've got about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of oil in there. Nope, you know what? We put in our sourdough bread about 5 minutes ago. I gotta remember, I'm terrible with this timer thing over here. Tomorrow, my oven is getting fixed, hopefully, in the morning, hopefully. So I'll hopefully be back to my routine. So when I'm gonna know in like 15 minutes, we need to take that lid off because very important. Okay, let's get these cubed up. You're just I'm so used to setting the timer on the microwave and this timer, it's really good for like one timer, but having to set multiple timers, it's very difficult. It's funny how you get to like certain things over another. It's like, so today we had our new washer and dryer unit combined because after 16 years, our original washer and dryer finally gave out, I mean, it lasted us well, 16 years and a family of 7, it held out. I mean, I do probably goes through 2 to 3 loads a day at least on there. But and finally, the washer is actually still working for the most part. It leaks a little every now and then, the seal gets dirty. But the dryer was just on the air dry setting. There was no heat. And so we finally got in there and it's coming here. And we have that, but of course now we've got to like set that whole thing up, and it's like a whole manual on how to use it. And I'm like, it's gonna be great once I learn how to use it. And you know how it is, that learning process of learning a new technological gadget isn't always the most fun, but once it gets there, it'll be nice. You have like this whole thing where you can download an app to your phone and apparently run the washing machine from your phone. We'll see how that works. I'm going to be like at soccer practice and all of a sudden it's going to go haywire. Because that's how it works. But I'm excited to read my 26-page manual on how to operate my washing machine. Hopefully not too difficult. But if tomorrow I look deranged and crazy, well, it's because I haven't figured it out yet. Okay, let's get these guys cubed up here. Doing, just a good medium size dice on them. We'll get our onions going on there, and then we'll get to our apples. Get those kind of sauteing up here. We'll just do a lovely spiced apple with brown sugar, cinnamon, a little bit of lemon juice, and a splash of vanilla. Kind of favorite way. My kids like them. Any of you will be very, very happy. Now, the only thing I find with spiced apples when you make them, you always need way more than you think. One apple doesn't yield very many spiced apples, or at least my kids, they go through them so fast. It's like an apple pie. You realize you need like 8 to 10 apples, and that's a lot of apple peeling and slicing. Okay, we've got our potatoes prepped up here. Let me get my sweet peppers so that once our onions are done, we'll have them there. You could also use a bell pepper if you want a little bit of heat in your peppers. You could throw in like a poblano or a jalapeno or a serrano if you're very brave. Here, these are just the good old sweet, so like a bell pepper. Adds a nice little bit of flavor, but without the heat. And I find with cutting peppers, if you cut them from the inside, they're going to cut nicer, smoother. You're going to have less slip and slide. If you do find that your knife is snagging on the pepper, that means it's time for you to sharpen up your knives.
Are the kids interested in the Olympics going on?
We've had them on all day, so they are interested. They kind of like, I will say my 14-year-old son, he's the most interested in it right now. I don't think the little ones, understand it at all. And half the time I'm like, and what are they doing as for some of the sports I'm trying to figure out? But, I'm very excited for it. I love it. It's always fun to have on. And, I was actually talking about speed skating. And I was like, you know what? I actually feel like my oldest daughter would be a really good speed skater because she's very, very fast. And she was a really, really great ice skater. But I was always like, oh, you shouldn't go into ice skating because you're going to be too tall. And it's one of those sports that if you're over a certain height, you're kind of, as a woman, you kind of lose that advantage in the field. But she loved it and she was really great. And she actually got to skate with Scott Hamilton when she was younger. He has like a program here in Nashville and he like comes out to it, like not every weekend, but he would come out there and she's got like pictures of him with Scott Hamilton. Which I only say that because it popped up on my little feed the other day and I was like, oh, I remember that on there. But she was really good at it. And I was like, I think she was going there and they were talking about how that was a sport that you don't actually have to like specialize in until like later in life to get there. And I was like, you know what? I wonder if she would even like that because she is like a speed demon. She loves to go fast. She's like one of those like daredevil kids that she has that need for speed. When we went on our Alaskan cruise, they had go-karts there. The first, lap, she was the cautious kid, went around. Once she figured out how to do it, she was lapping us and was like crazy. I still remember I think it was her second grade talent show. She did a roller skating like show for it to like the Moana song on there where she like skated around in her roller skates because she was really good at it. Okay, let's get these apples kind of prepped up here for our things while our onions are caramelizing. Hey, Loki. So we'll start. I've got mainly Granny Smith, but then I've got it looks like a Fuji and a Pink Lady here with it. I was going into my fridge out there, my produce fridge, and seeing what I have to cook up. And I was like, oh, I've got some apples in here. And Evie, of course, requested something other than potatoes, but potatoes was going to be such a hardship for her to have to eat. Get these peeled up. And we'll get half of them peeled up. That way we can start them to simmer, and then we'll get the other ones on there. I'm not going to cut these super small. I like them a little bit chunkier when I'm doing spiced apples so that they have a bit of body to them. But when I'm doing like an actual like baked good, I typically cut them very thin to tenderize them quicker. Here. And keep my eyes over on those onions for this. This is the one thing about, spiced apples or anything like that. Anything where you have to peel. It's not that much fun. I think that's why I would, in a restaurant, the head chef, the big kahuna, they get the sous chef that does all the food prep. And I'm like, I need a couple of those. I need to get my kids in here, having them do the sous chef stuff, have them prep up everything. I'll make it. You prep all of the tedious little ingredients.
You have a question. Does your knife block have a sharpener, or do you sharpen your knives yourself?
So my knife block has a honing steel, which is like a little sword type thing, a little rounded, almost looks like an FE. And so I just sharpen it using that. So it's not one of those fancy ones where you put the blades in and you do it. This one goes in there, which works nice because it works with a variety of different knives on there. It's just the classic, sometimes you can't go wrong with something that's been around for centuries. So I like it. It's easy to use. And, I don't like when I sharpen my knives, I don't dedicate like a huge amount of time to sharpening them. I like to, sharpen them up for like 2-3 minutes. And if it's good, it's good. And then I'll be back in a couple of weeks to do it again. So it's more of like a periodically. It's not like I'm going to sit down and dedicate a couple hours to making sure they're to the pristine tip top, but I'll just grab it up, and when I do it, I feel like I'm this master swordsman, because you feel pretty cool when you do it.
You're not.
I'm pretty awesome. It's like just if you're watching this master swordsman, that's me. Amazing.
Inigo.
Yes, Inigo Montoya. Even better, wasn't his father's name like Domingo or something like that? I feel like it. It was Sunday in Spanish, which I believe is domingo. Gotta love the book. Do you have 6 fingers? There, give these a nice little toss. Okay, now that we've got our onions and our peppers with a good little bit on them, let's get our garlic in here, and then we can throw in our potatoes and get those cooking up. And then we've got about 5 minutes before we take our sourdough out and take the lid off of it and turn our temperature down to about 450. In the oven with our sourdough, I have 2 whole chickens roasting up. I did a really simple kind of seasoning, a nice savory seasoning on them. So I used a little bit of Italian seasoning, garlic, salt, black pepper, onion powder, and Mrs. Dash's table blend for them, and then a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, and then fresh garlic. And then I mixed all those spices into about 1.5 sticks of butter, which is because I used about 3/4 of a stick for each chicken. And I stuck my hand underneath the skin of the chicken so that I could thoroughly rub that butter mixture in there so that when it cooks, it seeps into the skin and flavors it up. Makes a great thing. And I'll pop those out and I'll tell you more about it when we take them out and take a look at it. So, and then I rub their top skin on top of that with a little bit of oil and some of the spices on well so that crisps up nicely too. So let me give them. Yes, we have a video of the prep of how to do a roast chicken because it's a lot of people think, oh, you just put a chicken in the oven. And it's like, you can, but if you want that flavor to come out and be a little bit nicer, you just take like room temperature butter, mix it with your herbs, and then you just put your hand and you separate it from the skin. And it really does make your chicken so moist, so flavorful, and so lovely. It's one of those things, just really elevates it. Okay, we're gonna, in just a second, we will take out our sourdough in about 4 minutes. Get a nice kind of good chunk up on these apples. And get these here. Let's see. Again, I want a good body to them because they're going to reduce out a lot of liquid. And I want them to have not just turn to mush. Now, using a nice firm apples like the Pink Lady and the Granny Smith will give you a lovely firm apple when you bake up and cook with. Try to avoid using like the Red Delicious, Golden Delicious, because those are more mushy, mealy apples when they cook up, and so they'll just kind of turn to a mush. While this is heating up here, let's get some of our other stuff in here. I've got a half a lemon that I had saved, so I always like to just cut off that part and take our seeds out. And we're going to squeeze our fresh lemon juice in here. And then, that was a juicy, juicy lemon. We're going to add in about a half a teaspoon or so of vanilla. It really mellows out the flavor and is just wonderful with it. I really enjoy a little bit of vanilla extract in my apples. We're going to do about a teaspoon or so of salt, or not salt, of cinnamon. There we go. And then because I'm going to I have 3 more apples we'll put in there. We're going to use we're going to do around a cup of brown sugar, maybe, not like firmly packed. So it'll be like 3/4 of a cup of firmly packed brown sugar. But we're going to use a good amount because the spiced apples, their Granny Smith are rather tart. And then the lemon juice, you want to have enough in there. You okay there, Loki? You can make it? He's a snorty dog. I'd be a King Charles Cavalier Spaniels. They have rather short snouts, and he sounds like an old man, but he's pretty young and spry, although he doesn't sound like it. Okay, get this mixed up. I'm going to add a little pat of butter in here because we are going to use a little bit of cornstarch to thicken up at the very end to make sure that sauce, the juice, is cling to the apples because my kids they love that Let's grab, we've got about 1 more minute. We actually probably take it out around now. Well, before we do that, let's actually get our potatoes in here. We've got our onions and our peppers sauteed up. We're going to get our our potatoes in here. We're going to give them a nice stir around, coat them up. We're going to put our lid on them so they can steam fry for just a little bit. And then we'll season them up at the very, very end, because you don't want to season them early, because what will happen is those spices will stick to the bottom of your pan, and then those spices can burn up. And you won't have as nice and crispy and as lovely as a fried potato as you want. Of course, as long as I keep everything in the pan. I feel like sometimes I need pans with really high lids. But that's because I'm not the most tender. I always say, if kitchen materials, pans, survive me in the kitchen, then they're commercial grade. They'll survive everybody. A little bit of more olive oil. And then we're going to put our lid on and let these guys steam up. And then I'm going to grab our thing out of the oven. Our sourdough, we'll take the lid off. So let's get this one on here so it has a chance to start crisping up. Get these guys on.
So what temperature are you cooking
them? I'm cooking them right now at around a 5. You don't need to cook them up very high, because that steam heat will go up there, but it will still continue to get a nice kind of crisp up on here. Here is our beautiful cinnamon swirl sourdough loaf. I put this lid right over here. And now we're going to bake this for 20 minutes at 450. Now with the cinnamon swirl on top, that cinnamon, when it bakes up a lot darker. So it will look like a dark brown versus my normal amber brown, but it's not burnt. It's just because cinnamon is already dark brown to begin with. We're going to turn off and we're going to put the oven at 450. There we go. And then let me actually grab my big pot of chicken out here. I'm checking my time. So in 20 minutes, we'll do that. We're going to just take a little bit of the juices of the chicken. Oh my gosh, this thing is so heavy. And I'm going to make it. I kid you not. It is very, very heavy. We're going to take a little bit of this and we're going to sprinkle some of our juices over the top of this. So let me just grab there. So this is our roasted chicken. I'm going to find a way to get this hot lid rested. Very good. Beautiful. Now I've got a ladle here. I'm not taking off my gloves because otherwise I will grab this in there. So just take these juices on the bottom, which is actually our broth, and our spices and the butter. And you're going to just kind of almost like you're basting it. We're going to swirl it over the top of this. Yes.
DMAC.
Oh, thank you, DMAC. We appreciate that. But we have over here, this is our lovely chicken. We seasoned them up. So that nice kind of dark brown coloring is from our spices in there. I have a good amount. I coated it underneath the skin. So there's onion powder, black pepper, Mrs. Dash's table blend, which has paprika in it, which is why you have a slightly darker brown color to it. But you can see it's all that underneath the skin and is just wonderful and beautifully flavored. This keeps it nice and moist. I'm going to get it in the cavity. Inside each of my chicken cavities, I have an onion in there to add an herbal flavor to it. We're going to put our lid right back on.
Brenda.
Well, thank you, Brenda. We appreciate that. In the first part of this, we cooked it up at 450 with the lid off for about 30 minutes. And then we put the lid on. Okay, we're going to make this. The thing is heavy. The pan in and of itself, minus like the 20 pounds of chicken, is like 25 pounds. I'm not a weakling. I trust me, I'm not. Feels like it right there. All right, let's give a good stir around there. I'm going to turn this down just a smidge. We've got our first batch of our apples. We're going to get the rest of them going. I wanted them to start sweating out so that first bottom layer can start cooking, and then we'll add these in here. That way you get them cooking because the top layer doesn't cook as quickly as the bottom layer anyways. So once we get them in here, we'll go. We've got in here, and I always say there's 6 apples, but it's gonna look like I have 2.
Rondi is your cowboy hat.
Ahora. Well, thank you. We appreciate that. Here we go. I'm going to core these and then peel off the skin because unfortunately apple skins are just chewy and they don't get tender when you cook them. So you have to do that work if you want the best product on there. Now, I will say you can use pears. Pear skins are get very tender, so you don't have to peel a pear if you don't want to. And their flavor profile and their texture is very, very similar to an apple. So if you want to skip a little bit of the prep, that is one of a really great way to do it. Here we go. And peel these. And then I'm going to flip our potatoes here in just a second. Get them kind of working their magic, get their crisping up. So let me grab a spatula out. So we've got that steam in here. We're going to slide this under. And we're going to get all of these kind of spread out. We'll flip them over. Now the trick to making sure you get really good fried potatoes is making sure you don't just constantly stir. We're going to flip each batch over and then we'll put the lid back on and we'll let them sit again for another few minutes to crisp up. Almost lost one. There we go. But I feel like a lot of people, they're like, oh, my potatoes don't ever get crispy or they'll get mushy. And it's because you're stirring them. You got to let them sit on that bottom of that pan and get that heat so it can crisp up. Okay. Get these last guys right here. And fold them off. A few more apples to go. I'm going to turn this guy down a little bit since we've got a nice beautiful kind of caramel base forming with that. And that's our butter, brown sugar, vanilla, and cinnamon.
You have a question. Did you cook the potatoes first?
I did not cook the potatoes first. They're cooking in there right now. I just peeled them and then cubed them up. We sauteed up our onions, peppers, and garlic. And then we're adding in our potatoes and we're cooking them over about a medium heat, so around a 4.5. We are putting the lid on them, which is going to almost steam fry them. So they'll get a crispy bottom, but that will trap in the moisture and the heat, which will allow them to cook up a little bit faster. And then for the last 5 minutes of cooking, we'll take that lid off, which will allow them to kind of dry out a little bit more, get a little bit more crispy, and then we'll add our spices. So it's delicious. Really quick way to make them. Gives you nice, soft but crispy fried potatoes, which is what I love. But not Evie. She's like, potatoes again. And I was like, I'm going to make potatoes so much that eventually you're going to start liking potatoes. One day, I swear, she will like potatoes one day. It might be in 70 years when she can't taste anything and she finally gives in to liking potatoes. But she will like potatoes one day. I've never, she doesn't like French fries. I will say the only form of a potato that she likes is probably a form that most people don't like, and it is in a salt and vinegar chip. And I think it's because it's the vinegar flavor. She likes that tanginess, not the actual potato chip form. She's my odd one. But all of my kids, she's always been a little, picky on there, but all of my kids went through a picky stage from, I want to say 8 to 11, 9 to 11. That's where they went from eating their variety of foods kind of really dropped down. And they were very skeptical about everything. And then once they kind of hit those, that teenagery, closer to that, now they've gotten a lot more adventurous and bougie in their eating. And I say that, but she loves sushi and hummus and salmon and some crazy things, but your basic foods, it took forever for her to get to a hamburger, and she still doesn't eat a hamburger a normal way. She only eats the burger, no bun. So
You got a lot of comments. They like your apron.
Oh, thank you. This is one of my new ones that I got for my birthday. The kids gave it to me. I know I feel like it's a very happy, flowery print on there. It was one of those. So like my parents gave me a set with the like a mystery box, and my kids gave me a set with a mystery box. So I really like this one because it's fun, and I don't have any florally ones yet. Flip these guys over. I'm starting to get that nice crispy edge on there. Beautiful. And as you can see, some of these potatoes are starting to get more translucent. They're not as white or as opaque, and that means they're getting tender. Again, we don't have any of our spices on there. We'll add those on at the very, very end. That way they don't burn to the bottom of our pan during our cooking process. Okay. Let's get this on here. Let's start prepping up our asparagus to start cooking in here. For our asparagus, let's get a little bit of garlic going in there for olive oil too. But we'll simmer up a little garlic and olive oil, and then we'll just saute them off. We'll put the lid on to do a nice little kind of a steamed tender crisp cook so that when they get a nice vibrant green, they'll be ready. And looking good. Perfect. And then just a little drizzle in our pan. Turn this on. We'll heat that up. We'll get this garlic cooking, and then let's prep up our asparagus. Now with asparagus, you can't just throw the whole stalk in. This bottom portion of the stalk, and it's a good portion of it, is going to be like chewing on a stick if you leave it on. It dries out very, very easily. So you may feel like you're wasting a lot, but you're not. You need to cut off about an inch of it to get to the nice tender green base of it. You see how they look very different? That is going to be really chewy and fibrous. This is going to be a nice tender fleshy part. So feels like you're wasting it, but trust me, you're not going to want to eat the bottoms of them anyways. So we'll chop those off. Now, typically my favorite asparagus to get are the really tender, tiny ones, but you can't always get them. These aren't, sometimes I've gotten those ones that I swear are like the, the giant sequoias of asparagus that are just like huge. But I like the thinner ones because they are more tender and you get more flavor on each one. But these are lovely, or as my children calls them, little broccoli spears. Choo, choo, choo. Not that I tell my children to play with their food. Get our garlic up here cooking here. And then let's dip these apples underneath on our base here. But you can see we've got this lovely kind of brown sugar kind of syrup that it's cooking in. That's just the natural juices from the apple, a little bit of that lemon juice, cinnamon, splash of vanilla, and a little bit of butter. We'll kind of get those around, cook these guys up. And then towards the end, we'll put in a little bit of cornstarch, which will allow that juices to thicken up and cling to the apples, which really brings all of that flavor with them. Okay. Give my hands a quick rinse. And looks like our garlic has a good sizzle on it. Looks like we transferred in a little onion over here from our other pan, but that's okay. And we'll let it crisp up for like 30 seconds, and then let's get this asparagus in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply kind of coat each asparagus in this lovely kind of garlic oil, and then we'll put our lid on it and just steam it for a few minutes. There. Just kind of coat it up, infuse those flavors in. And let me grab this lid. I will say this is one thing I love about the hex clad pans is they come with the lids that you can see through, and they have a little venting hole, so it allows some of the steam to come out, so it doesn't make it super wet in there, but it does allow a nice steam cooking.
Did you boil the asparagus first?
Nope, we are going to just do a pan fry on them, or saute, but with the lid on it, it's going to trap the natural moisture. Do you see how there's so much steam coming off of these potatoes? That's the natural moisture that was stuck in there from the pan, which will allow them to get almost as if you steam them or boiled them, so they'll get nice and tender. But you don't have to go through that process of boiling them in a pot, or essentially doing that quick flash boil on them. Flip these guys over. We're going to pat them down. They're just about ready here for our spices and our seasoning. We're going to put our lid on and kind of steam them up one more time. But as you can see, just the natural liquid in the asparagus is steaming up in our pan. It's trapping in there. That is going to create a very a sauna type environment, or I should say like a steam room environment. And it essentially steams them, but allows them to still get sauteed on the bottom. You get the best of both worlds. Here, put these guys under. And
do you have the asparagus at medium heat?
Right now I have them at about a 4. I'm going to had it at a 5, but I'm going to turn it down to around a 4. I find when I do these, like my potatoes and my asparagus, 4, right around a medium is the perfect kind of temperature for it. If you do it too high, then you're going to risk burning the bottom, and you want to cook it a little bit lower at it super high.
And can you go over what's in the apples so far?
Yes, in the apples we have about I would say half a tablespoon of butter, maybe around 3/4 of a cup of brown sugar, 6 apples, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a half a teaspoon of vanilla, and juice from half a lemon. And we're going to let these kind of simmer up and cook. Once all of them kind of reach this nice, more translucent, darker color, that's when we are going to know that they're tender, completely tender through. And then we'll add a little bit of cornstarch in there to have them create a slurry to thicken up on there. Let's kind of grab our chicken out now so that it has a chance to sit for this. So I'm going to grab my big pot. And you know what? I don't need this anymore, so I'm going to just move this out of the way. That way I don't have to lift too much. Okay, let's get my stretches on. Here. Very, very heavy, guys. Okay. Whew. We've got our beautiful chicken here, roasted up. Those are our lovely kind of a nice herby mix underneath there. We have Mrs. Dash's table blend, onion powder, garlic, salt, rosemary, black pepper, and butter. And we pushed that. So when I stuck my hand and I separated the skin from the chicken, and I rubbed that butter paste under there with some Worcestershire sauce, which is giving it that nice kind of darker brown color, but delicious. We're going to let it sit here, kind of bring it out. I'll bring it out on a cutting board in just a second so we can cut up at least a piece of it for our dinner. I'm going to slide this just out of the way. Beautiful. Now, the broth that's kind of left over in the chicken, if you have extras, because we'll have extras tonight, which is why I made it, you're going to want to take it when you pack it up, and you're going to want to ladle that over your chicken. It is going to keep it very tender and flavorful and moist for whatever you want to use it for the next day or whatnot. It's kind of the best way, I always say, when you're going to prep it up, use that liquid. Here's our asparagus. You can see it's turning this nice and vibrant green. We're going to give it a quick rotation here. Beautiful.
Yeah, does the chicken need to rest like a steak does?
I always let it rest for at least 5 to 10 minutes. So that's why we took it out right now, so that when there's a time. Because if with any meat, if you cut into it when it is seeping hot, that is when all the juices are flowing. And what will happen is you will cut and they will flow right out of the meat. Letting it sit and cool down will allow them to trap inside, and it really allow them to kind of, stay in the meat, keep it moist and delicious on there. Now with red meat, most of the time you're also letting it sit so that it can continue kind of cooking to the perfect temperature, like a medium rare. So you always take it out a little bit under so it can sit and cook to the perfect temperature. With chicken, it's more about trapping in that moisture and juices. So similar things, but slightly different reasons. Okay, let's get these potatoes seasoned up on here. So we're gonna do a little bit of black pepper. Just a nice little sprinkle over. And then I have some Mrs. Dash's table blend. This is the same seasoning that I put underneath our chicken, as well as Italian herbs, fresh garlic, onion powder. Yeah, perfect. And then we'll take our sourdough out here in about a minute. I'm gonna open up a new garlic salt. Get that off. Perfect. Before I mix this in, I'm going to let it steam up, which means I'm going to let the natural liquids kind of rehydrate those spices so that they're not as dry on the potatoes. And then we'll mix them on and they'll kind of coat up. Take the lid off of this guy too. Look at that nice vibrant green on the asparagus. That's when you know that it's a very tender crisp. It will be nice and tender, but still have that good kind of firmness to it. You want it vibrant green. You don't want it to go brown. Okay, and this is just about ready too. So we are getting close to everything. Let's grab our sourdough out. Okay, this is our cinnamon swirl. So it has a nice bit of cinnamon on top, but it is looking lovely and gorgeous. I'm going to slide this out of the way. So during the lamination process, so I start out with actually a basic loaf of sourdough bread here. And then during that lamination process, I coat it with cinnamon sugar and cinnamon, extra cinnamon, through it. And then I kind of shaped it up and had it there. But look at that gorgeous loaf. It will be delicious. I'm going to grab this over here because it's nice and hot. But it is one of our family's favorite on there. And you cut into it. We had to let it rest for like 10 minutes before we cut into it. But it is a swirl of cinnamon sugar throughout. So just like your cinnamon sugar swirl bread. So delicious. Okay, let's get these spices flipped in. And then we are going to get our cornstarch in our apples. We'll season up our asparagus with a little bit of garlic salt and onion powder. And then we're ready to take some of our chicken out and serve it up. There we go. Perfect. Beautiful. I've got these down nice and low. As I'm over here, let's do this real quick. A little sprinkle of garlic salt and a little bit of onion powder, which actually is going to cling to the asparagus. It's going to help those spices stay on there. And then for our apples, hey Bruni, I'm going to grab a spoon here. And we are going to add in some cornstarch to kind of thicken it up for it. We're going to do a light dusting over the top. Try not to just have it come down in a big glob or you'll get like a cornstarch kind of dumpling. We're going to probably use around 2 or so tablespoons to get it to the right consistency. But start with one and then mix and then add in some more because you don't want to go too far with it. And it can depend. Sometimes you need more because your apples were extra juicy, but sometimes they're not as much and you need less. The little pat of butter that we added in the beginning is going to take away any chalkiness flavor that cornstarch can give on here. It looks like we're just going to be good with one. You see how it's clinging beautifully to those apples, which is what we want. Excellent. I'm going to turn that off. We'll let those sit here. And that's why I say add a little in case you need more. You can add more later. Okay. Let me slide these guys out of the way so I have some room to get my chicken out to prep it on here. Always slide these guys over here. And let's get a cutting board.
How many dogs and cats do you have?
Too many. I have 2 dogs and 3 cats. Although I feel like I might have like 3 dogs because my parents' dog is here all the time. Like when they go off to work, their dog spends the day with us, with our dogs, because my dog, one of my dogs, is actually their dog's mother. Like, and there, I know, crazy family ties, and they don't really like each other that much, but it's funny. So much, and they're like carbon copies of each other. They have the same mannerisms. Like Bruni, she'll like hold her mouth on a sideways like this, and she gives this little scowl. And my parents' dog does the exact same thing. I think it's hilarious. Okay, let's get these. Let me see which. We'll do this one. I'm gonna grab a chicken out, and that way we can cut it. Just be careful. A lot of times when you get one of these out, you'll lose a leg or a wing in here. So just make sure you slide around and slide under it. What I like to do is I'm going to stick my whole thing in here, my tongs. I'm going to say, if you haven't started using tongs, try them. They're amazing. They're wonderful. Great kitchen tool. We'll leave the other one in there. And then I'll use my apple knife over here. Let me give it a quick rinse. And that way I can use this to cut. But let's get everything turned off. We'll be ready to serve up here. Get these coated one last time. I'll slide this guy over, although we can't cut him for a few more minutes, but he's our dessert tonight. And we're going to get ready to serve up here in just a second. Get a little plate. I'm going to grab my ladle here for a little bit of my chicken broth, but we've got so much goodness to come out here. Let's get a piece of our chicken here cut up. So you can even see in here these beautiful, like right there, all of this herb that I stuffed underneath the skin. So I'm going to cut right here, and then we'll add it onto our plate. So we've got our herby chicken.
Does your mom cook as well as you?
My mom, I think, stopped cooking years ago when I started cooking. And I completely think she has forgotten how to cook. She was growing up an amazing cook, and she was very much the like soup, stews, crock pot type cook. I love all of her food on there, but I can't remember the last time she cooked. So she makes amazing Swedish pancakes. My kids tell me they're way better than her, but we got it there. We have our oven roasted chicken that we seasoned up with garlic, rosemary, Italian seasoning, and some Mrs. Dash's table blend. We have our pan fried potatoes with onions, peppers, and fresh garlic on there. And our lovely, beautiful asparagus right here that we kind of seasoned with onion powder and garlic salt and did our little steam bake. And then, of course, per Evie's request, we have our spiced apples, because who doesn't love a nice cinnamon spiced apples for it? And then a nice little sweet treat at the end. We have our cinnamon swirl sourdough bread, which brings you the great sourdough flavor, but it has that nice cinnamon swirl and a touch of sweetness in it as well. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. We've got our oven roasted chicken, and then our spiced apples, fried potatoes, and asparagus. and you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my all clad pans, hex clad pans, knives, cutting boards, all the different things that I use in the kitchen I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you so much for